Hello friends, here we are again, and I made a post to the Reddits, and I could not be more pleased with the response I got from it. There were so many excited people who wanted to tell me that they liked what I had to say, people who wanted to tell me that they didn't like what I had to say, just wonderful engagement. And it's time for me to respond to you guys and tell you sort of what I was thinking. I want to clarify a little bit. I want to bring it together a little bit, make sure I've cleared up any misconceptions, and maybe they aren't misconceptions. Maybe you'll still not like what I had to say, and maybe you still will, or maybe you'll change to not liking what I have to say. But either way, it doesn't really matter, because I do want to address you guys, because, oh my goodness, did you see what happened? I'm looking at the thread right now, and there's like a thread with 21 comments. In the scope of Reddit, small. In the scope of our juggling, we did it. We got engagement. People talked. I struck a nerve and I made you feel a thing, and I couldn't be more happy about that. But there are things we need to address, and I'm going to dip on in right now. And I'm going to start with the top post. And Joe, we need to talk, dude. Like, we really need to talk, because things happened in your response and it got upvoted a bunch. So clearly a lot of people agree with you, and I don't think they're wrong to agree with you, but man, you just went all out on me. You were just like, let me just bop. You know what I mean? And like, I'm going to get into this, but there was so much good feedback in what you had to say, and I really appreciate it. I particularly appreciated you giving me the site swap notations for those tricks I showed off in that little thing. And I'm not going to juggle here, just so you guys know, so this is more of a talky thing. It's unfamiliar for me too. I like talking, clearly. But usually I'm juggling and stuff. We're not going to do that here. We got to address some things. So, Joe, we're starting with you, dude. I got important stuff. You said that I am using site swap notation. Joe, don't you think that's a little dishonest? No. I know you were just like, no, it's not dishonest. It's totally true. I want you to think about what you said. What is site swap notation, right? It's a number representing a throw height, right? At its very basic core, I think that's a fair thing to say about site swap, right? You have a 2, and that means, you know, one of these throws, and you have a 1, it means one of these throws. And like, as I recall, and again, I don't really prescribe to this methodology. I don't find it useful for me. But as I recall, I think odd numbers are the crossy ones, and even numbers are the uppy ones. And what you're saying is, because I juggle, I'm using site swap. Okay, so if I'm just a human and not a juggler, am I doing site swap? Like, seriously, is this site swap? I'm pretty sure it's not. What I'm doing is throwing a thingy in the air. It happens to be a slinky. Ooh. Is that really site swap, dude? That's not what you actually meant by site swap, though, is it? You wanted to make a point, but it's not really a valid point, I don't think, in this case, because site swap refers to so much more than just the act of throwing an object to a height. In juggling balls, like, you can say, well, I can write that thing in site swap, but that's not honest when you say that is site swap. That's not site swap, not in my opinion, at least. And granted, you are clearly a very accomplished juggler, and I would say it's safe to say probably a much better juggler than me. Interesting, you got mad at my post, huh? The essay, though. I love it. I love it. I'm so happy. What I'm trying to say is, that's not really honest, though, right? Like, site swap is a methodology of finding tricks. It is a methodology of looking at juggling in a certain way. At least for me. That's the way I think about it, and that's why I was talking about site swap in the way I do. If you're simply talking about throwing balls to certain heights, if you're engaging in juggling, you are doing that. So technically you are kind of doing site swap, if that is what site swap is. But I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced at all. I think site swap means that I'm going to write these numbers down, and then I'm going to do this trick that is dictated by the numbers by throwing these balls to these certain heights. And it's so much more than that too, though, right? I had another comment of somebody telling me, well, you know, site swap takes an hour to learn. That's true. If you just want to know different heights mean different throws, right? Again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. That's what the internet told me. I'm not. That's not honest. It's not honest at all for what actually is going on there, right? Site swap is a way of discovering new things you might never discover if you didn't use that methodology. And it's really interesting in a lot of ways because you can come to all these conclusions, find all these tricks. As you mentioned in your post, there's all this stuff you can use site swap for, and it's an interesting tool. For me, it's not an effective tool, right? And you can say, well, you can just sort of waggle your arms around until you find a trick, but that's not the way I approach finding a trick, right? I try and approach it to find an effect, right? I don't care what the numbers are behind it. I don't care what the heights are. I have a certain goal in mind, right? And it might be, well, I'm crossing my hands here and I want to experiment more with that. What can I do out of a different transition between two tricks, right? So I'm doing Burke's Barrage and then I want to do like, you know, something into Mill's Mess. So I need to find something to get there. And that's the way I approach it. I want to find new tricks that way. Say, well, I need this for doing transitions, for making things clean, for making things look amazing. It's different from site swap, right? It's a different approach. And it doesn't mean I'm just waggling around until I find a thing. I have a goal in mind, a very specific goal in mind. I want things to happen, but I'm getting there a very different way from somebody doing site swap. Also, I think it's fair to say that I look different from somebody doing site swap with 3 balls, right? Right? Maybe not. I mean, I know there are 3-ball jugglers that do site swap that arrive at similar conclusions, but I suspect we come to different conclusions about what we should be doing and how we should transition between things and how we should put a routine together, depending on our approach to the art form. For me, it is an art form, right? That's the way I think about juggling. I want it to be an art form. I want it to be a dance, and I want it to be smooth, and I want it to be a, you know, ballet maybe? Popping, robot, whatever I'm trying to get, whatever feel I want out of that trick, that's what I'm trying to imbue into it, and that's what I'm looking for. So, am I doing site swap? Really, step back, Joe. Think about that for a second. Am I doing site swap? Or does site swap mean something different? I appreciate what you're saying about people being interested in site swap. I think you cherry-picked that a little bit, though. I think you really just kind of like, you are being effective at a thing, right? And you teach site swap. And I understand why it hurts your feelings when I say something along the lines of, I think site swap is not really an interesting thing, right? But I think I'm actually representing a lot of people who say, well, like, you know, those numbers, that math, doesn't really make my brain go. I like math of all sorts of different kinds, but not that math, right? It's putting math to breakdancing for me. And I'm not looking for math in breakdancing. I'm looking for something that's, you know, cool, sweet to look at. And I don't, math can make that. And so we have lots of jugglers who do make cool things out of site swap. I just don't think I'm one of them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think even if you get appeal out of your seminars, regardless, I think you have cherry-picked that audience, right? The people who come to see you, why are they coming to see you? They know who you are, right? I would think, right? Joe, you have told me as much that you are a pillar of the community. And that's okay. I'm into that. But don't you think the people coming to see you are likely to know that about you, right? And be interested in what you are presenting to them. So isn't that audience going to be particularly interested in the thing that you're teaching? Does that apply to everybody else that's not going to go there? What about the people who don't go to your panels? Are they interested in site swap? Maybe. Maybe not, right? Or do you think it's a universally appealing topic? Because, I don't think there's any universally appealing topics, and maybe it's a large percentage, but I'm just throwing it out there. I want you to think about it. You know, Joe, you were kind of mean-spirited. And guys, we'll move past Joe here in a little bit, but Joe needs to hear what I have to say to him, or at least I want to tell you what I think. You were kind of mean-spirited, dude. Right down to insulting my prop. Yeah, I gave you a pause there, Joe, to think about what I just said. You insulted my prop. What a weird thing to insult in another juggler, right? To say that it's more basic, right? I could look at a yo-yo and say it's more basic than toss juggling. I could look at contact and say it's more basic than toss juggling. What? You're a juggler, dude. You do lots of things. You might assume about me, if I've been juggling a long time, I've probably dabbled in other, like, physical manipulations of things in space, right? If we think about juggling as being that thing, physical manipulation, I've probably dabbled, right? Maybe yo-yo. I've done some yo-yo. I'm not particularly good. You're probably better than me. Guaranteed better than me. I'm not that great of a yo-yoer, but, right? Devil sticks, Diablo. I've played with lots of things. And at the end of the day, if you insulted any one of those props too, I'd be looking at you the same way, like this. really? Right? Because it's just a prop, right? It has certain things that are cool about it. It has certain things that are less cool about it. There's good bits, bad bits. There's tech to what I'm doing with light up balls, right? Have you played with them a lot? Maybe you have. Have you played with the tech behind them? Have you looked at yourself on a camera and seen what it looks like? Because there's all this stuff, right? How do I hold my hand, right? If it's this way, then you can't see the ball. If it's this way, you can. There's certain tricks that just don't look fun at all when you do it with light up balls, because especially if you're in really dark environments, it's going to be different, right? There's tech there. And we're going to talk about tech juggling, but I want to talk about audiences too, right? There's lots of different audiences, and you referenced dealing with audiences that can be wowed by your technical juggling, and I believe that to be true. What I'm looking for, though, at the end of the day, is not just wowing. I'm looking for engagement. My engagement with the glowy balls, it's good some of the time, not so good other times. You know, it's not quite there, but that's why I'm starting this conversation, to figure out how can we engage people, right? The tech juggling doesn't seem to be doing it all the way. The clowns doing their thing don't seem to be doing it all the way. None of us are doing it all the way. And that's sort of where I'm getting at with you, Joe, right? You're hanging out here on the moon saying, well, I did this thing and I am successful, so we did it. And Joe, you did it, and that's cool, but I have some food for thought for you. You know who didn't know who you are? Me. I had no idea who you are. I still don't know who you are. And isn't that a shame? Like, isn't it a shame that our juggling superheroes are not well known by anyone, even in our own community? We have so many things missing, so many people who are undiscovered by even us. Doesn't that mean that we aren't there? Don't we want to go for not just the moon, but Mars? I want to go to Mars, and I don't just want to send a probe there. I want to land on it, and I want to make a habitation there. And then I want to go farther. I want us to get juggling to the point where everybody can watch it and enjoy it, because I think it is a globally appealing art form. And I do think it's an art form. I think there's a science there, a math there. But at the end of the day, I do think it's this thing that's bigger than that. And I think we can bring people there with us. I want you to think about Prince. Who that likes rock and roll doesn't know who Prince is? Who doesn't know who Michael Jackson is? Who doesn't know even who Daft Punk is? Right? We're not there. And we're doing this thing that's been going on way longer than those, right? Juggling goes back to like ancient Egyptian times. There's hieroglyphs and stuff, right? And we're still not there. So, Joe, at the end of the day, can't we do better? Shouldn't you be known by people? I'm not looking for me to be known by people. I think I'm decent, right? I do some stuff, but I think there's way better jugglers out there, and I think they deserve the recognition. I think they should be superstars. And, you know, I hope to see your juggling, because maybe you should be a superstar too, right? But I want you to get there, and that's what I'm arguing for. And what I'm talking about is we're not there. No matter how much you are succeeding, no matter how much anyone else is succeeding, we are not there. Period. Joe, you're a pillar of the juggling community. And some guy made an internet video, and you're kind of mean, dude. Like, look at me. Like, you're kind of mean, dude. What? Really? Because I tried to start a conversation? I know, I called out your baby. Your technical juggling, and I knew that. And I said it at the time. I knew this was going to be kind of a thing. But look at what I got out of it. I got a thread where people are here talking about juggling. You know what we're not doing anywhere else? IJA Forum has mothballed forums, right? We can't post to the IJA website on their forums anymore because no one engaged, right? Someone, all of us, need to come and do this more often, to have these discussions and to start pushing our art form, our science, our math forward. Are you doing it, Joe? You've got audiences, but have you made the difference? I don't think any man can do it alone. Any woman can do it alone. I think we got to work together to make it happen. And I think we need to have that discussion now. Right now. Because what's going to happen if we don't? We're falling into obscurity. Right now. The art of throwing a thing in the air is falling into obscurity. Like, do you realize how ridiculous that is? We've been throwing stuff in the air and catching it in funny ways for so long, and people aren't watching us. What? That's a thing for humans. Anyways, Joe, I I hope you'll think about this, right? I hope you'll go back and look at what you wrote and think about what you said and think about what I'm saying and watch my video again and watch this again. And if you want to engage more on this, I would love to. And let's talk site swap, because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff about site swap, and there's really cool technical jugglers doing really interesting things. And aside for everybody else too, and you, Joe, that stuff is interesting to me as a juggler. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is accomplishing the mission of bringing people into the fold. And there's a lot of talk about that being bad, and I don't think it's ever a bad thing to bring more people into the fold, right? We've got to bring more people in, and we can still be technical and do cool stuff that's like really appealing to jugglers, but we can show them the rocket. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to show them the physics equation. We can do those equations in the background, but we can show them the rocket, right? And be like, look, it's a rocket. It goes in the sky. It's super cool. It's going to take us to other planets, and that's going to be sweet, right? And we can still have our physics equations behind it. So there is a place for the technical jugglers. There is a place for the numbers. That's not what I'm advocating for. What I'm advocating for is making sure that we show people the rocket first. So, Joe, I'm running out of time here, so I hope we can talk more. I'm going to move on real quick here. I heard an argument from, let me just scroll past your post here real quick. Dream leaking. You talked about selling out, basically. I love that conversation, because here's the thing about selling out. Like, you were talking about, like, do we really want to dumb it down and, like, make it appealing to everybody? Yeah, but we don't have to sell out to do it. You know, I don't think the Beatles sold out. They got steadily cooler as stuff went on. Right? Like, they started as a really poppy band and just made it cooler because people were into them. We got to get people into us. Is that selling out? Maybe. I don't know. Do we care? Right? For me, I want to perform for people. And maybe you don't want to perform for people, and that's fine too, right? But I think the context of what I was talking about was a performance, right? It's not about, I want to meditate and juggle myself and practice that, and that might be interesting to you. Juggling is meditation. Really interesting. Cool stuff. I could talk to you about it. You know, there's lots of other stuff we could talk about in that sector, much like, tech juggling. At the end of the day, aren't we just being Republicans sitting around talking about Fox News? Don't we want to bring people in from the outer folds? Is it worth selling out a little bit at least? Even if we can keep it cool, but like making it relatable for people? I think it is. We can still treat our audience like adults too. That's not a problem. We can. Like, they just don't have context to understand what we are talking about. Quick example, I'm running out of time, my producer's mad at me already, but okay, I'm gonna talk to you about StarCraft real quick. I like to do a 1-1-1 opening with the Terran. That gives me, factory starport, so I can drop Widow Mines, and I can do all sorts of cool stuff. I can go into a bioblob from there. Street Fighter. I play Akuma. I like fighting Zangief because it's an interesting zoning game. There's lots of frame traps and stuff. What I'm getting at here is when we talk technical juggling to other people, that's what they hear. It makes no sense to them. There's no reason for us to do this. We can make it a way that they can understand. I've got one final thing to talk to you about. I have a challenge for you guys. I'm almost out of time, really fast. I'm gonna get a track from my buddy. I'm gonna put it up for you guys. I would love it if you'd engage with me and come and do a performance with it with me. I'm gonna do one, you do one. Let's put them on the internet and show people what we can do with our different styles. Have a good night.